In this episode, once again, we speak to the amazing, the wonderful, the inspirational Sara McElroy. Sara is a former hustle culture devotee, ex-chief marketing officer, the Wall Street Journal's poster girl for pandemic career burnout, and a two-time member of the Great Resignation class of 2021 and 2022. And in today's episode, we're speaking to Sara to find out the 6 stages of conscious quitting process. Let's find out. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And once again, we have the amazing, the resilient Sara McElroy. Welcome, Sara. How are you doing?
Thank you, Gull. Awesome to be here.
Sara, everyone's heard your intro and they know how fabulous you are. But please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Yes. Well, I am a former CMO and ex-hustle culture devotee. And on the other side of becoming a two-time member of the Great Resignation, I was inspired to return to my journalism roots to find out what were other women experiencing and why were they also walking away in the midst of the pandemic. So that led me to found Raised to Rise, which is a journalism project and movement amplifying the powerful voices and stories of women from the Great Resignation.
Wonderful. And today we're talking about the 6 stages of conscious quitting process. So let's get straight into that. So why are we discussing that? Why do you think that's so important, Sara? And where did it come? How was this idea born?
Yes. Well, so this was something that organically emerged from charting the journeys of walking away from all the women that I interviewed for Raised to Rise. So when I first set out to start this journalism project, I just really wanted to understand what were the issues women were facing that were leading them to walk away, whether that was moving from one corporate role to another or starting their own entrepreneurial ventures. And as I dug into the stories, what really fascinated me the most was that decision point moment, that crystallizing moment when women knew they were going to quit their jobs. And so as I was asking each woman how she got to that place, I was so surprised that the red thread running through all of the interviews was that women were coming to this place of just knowing they needed to quit their jobs. Now, some women actually called it intuition, and some weren't comfortable using a term like that, but they would just say that they knew. They also potentially did more rational sort of mental gymnastics to make the decision with, spreadsheets and planning out budgets or pro-con lists or talking to other family and friends. Like those exercises weren't completely not a part of the process, obviously, but it was like those became secondary to this deeper gut knowing that they needed to walk away. And I was so blown away. Because I had been that serial good girl, I bristled a bit at this idea of us making these really major career decisions from this place of more of this like gut knowing or this unseen intuitive part of us, because it was like, wait, we've all been taught to approach our careers in a linear fashion, kind of like the conventional approach is find the general swim lane you're going to stay in for the next 3 to 4 decades. And then the goal after that is it's going to be, linear, climb the ladder, pull down fatter paychecks, chase the fancier titles. Like that is sort of the done and dusted playbook, right? And so it was like, oh my God, is this irresponsible of us to be making these major life decisions from this place of gut knowing? But what I realized is that I believe that the Great Resignation is a bit of this grassroots movement of women harnessing the power of their intuition. And if you think about the workplaces were designed by men for men. Here in the States, for example, in 1972, that's when women were granted equal protection in the workplace under the law with the Equal Rights Amendment. So yes, that was 50 years ago. And sometimes 50 years sounds like a long time, but you think about a monolithic institution like the workplace, 50 years is not a long time for the system to adapt to fit the differences of the two primary genders and then all of the genders that are coming into play these days as people are identifying differently. So it's like the system has not fully adapted. We were just expected to slot in. And part of that in this system that worships mental prowess our softer side, these capabilities that are more intuitive have had to take a back seat, because when you're looking at, for example, I was in marketing, like if a marketing campaign is going to perform, and don't get me wrong, like I still love data, facts, figures, science, evidence, all of those things. That doesn't mean any of that goes out the window. But if I were to come to the table and be like, I just have a gut feeling that this one is going to perform better, that would have, especially in my, my CMO role, which was a private equity backed organization, and it was numbers and spreadsheets all day long, that would have been looked at, like scoffed at, like that is soft, Sarah. And so we've learned to suppress and shut down that part of us. Also, as women with good girl conditioning, we've been taught to put others' needs first, and
Yes, always.
to not think about ourselves, and to make decisions based on what we feel. And so we will often ignore this knowing that something's wrong. Case in point, I ignored 2 episodes of throwing up blood, and it led me to shingles before I finally walked away from a job. So this is the roadmap that emerged from talking to all of these women from Raised to Rise. And I also spoke with women who walked away in years prior, because I wanted to capture the insights of those trailblazers who have more of that space between their big leap and now, and have that gift of hindsight. And this is their crowdsourced insight and wisdom that came through to show us the process of walking away, how to do it, how to prepare, what to look for, all of those things.
Fabulous. So what's the first stage?
Yes, the first stage is rumbling. And this is really where we're starting to see the misalignment and fragmentation. It's like honeymoon phase is over, rose-colored glasses are coming off. We're starting to see that there are cracks and fissures in our reality at work. And this stage can manifest differently for everyone, but a lot of the hallmarks include disillusionment, disengagement, feeling trapped, feeling stuck, feeling like you've settled, also even just feeling a pull to something greater, because sometimes we even ignore. We'll stay in these things called shadow careers, which are places that are comfortable, stable, secure, and maybe we even like that job, but there's something inside of us that's telling us we're meant to be doing something different, maybe something of greater impact. Like we can feel all of these different things that start to pop up and start to point to us that we're not likely in the place that we should be. Now, on the really extreme side, when you are in a situation that is really taking a toll on you mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, and your, social energy too, like we can see it manifest physically. And that could be things like burnout, insomnia, exhaustion, feeling like you don't even want to engage with family and friends. Like your world can really become smaller, and you can become a shell of yourself. So that is the first stage where we're starting to get those warning signs that something isn't right.
And then stage 2?
Stage 2 is knowing. And this is when you actually come to that mental realization that you're going to have to walk away. Now, this was really this is the linchpin of the journey, because without the knowing, there is no journey, right? We don't walk away without this knowing. But it fascinated me too, to understand, like, okay, how do we get to this point? What happens to us? And it seemed that I was able to find 3 categories or 3 ways the knowing comes to us, and it could be a combination thereof, but there were like these 3 lanes that really emerged in the interviews and the data. The first being that, like, that light bulb moment, like that Hollywood shot out of the dark, oh my god, I'm gonna have to quit. Like that is a real thing that has happened for people. So that would be the first way, like this lightning bolt hits and our realities kind of instantaneously shattered. We know we're going to have to walk away. The second way is more of a gradual build, and it's a collecting of little data points, little experiences, little things that happen along the way that lead to an ultimate conclusion that we're going to have to quit the job. And this can often be really culminating with a breaking point, because as with anything, like a daily paper cut, as I mentioned in my Friday feature, when we are continuing to ignore rumbling signs for a very long period of time, and those become a daily paper cut, when we finally hit that point of needing to walk, that can really be a very harsh breaking point. Yeah. Then the third is acceptance and surrender. Accepting I'm not going to be able to change what is not working for me, what is making me unhappy in this situation, and surrendering to the fact that I'm going to need to walk away. This can either be a real peaceful, empowered moment of acceptance and surrender where you just like you detach from all of the crazy frenetic energy of it and the trying to fix and all of those things, and you just reach a place of peace and you're like, I'm going to take back the power that I have ceded, and I'm going to choose to leave. Or it can also be that we have spent a lot of time trying to fix something. We are disappointed, and it can feel like we're waving the white flag. But either way, it is really anchored in both a period of acceptance and surrender. So those are the three ways that we know.
Okay, so first is rumbling, second is knowing, and third is acceptance. What's the fourth stage?
Oh, the third is decision. So the decision is the next stage in the process, because you go
Okay.
from rumbling and like feeling the warning signals, knowing, to being like, oh, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to walk away. And decision has to be separate though, because
Okay.
I've seen from interviewing other women that we can have that knowing and get tripped up by a lot of different factors that keep us almost bouncing around in this limbo or purgatory between rumbling and knowing, where, I've certainly done that before. Gosh, did I do that in my CMO role, and even in the other role that I left, where it was like you just keep thinking something's going to get better, I can fix this. You'll tell yourself, we'll talk ourselves out of it. Second guessing is really strong. And that's why we have to look at decision as an actual independent step in the process to get to. And that is when we make that mental commitment to walk away. Now, this is a really meaty step in the journey too, because this is where not only we're making that decision to walk away, we're determining what we're walking towards once we are done. And part of conscious quitting is that it's not just about being conscious and thoughtful and intentional in making the decision to quit, but it's also you're being really conscious about how you architect your career moving forward. You do a lot of that work that we talked about in the last episode of understanding what are your values and your priorities, what's not working for you at work right now, what would have to change, how do you want to show up differently, how are you perhaps showing up as a wearing a mask or as a facade of yourself. Like, you do more of that deep work. I deeply believe that we have been done a disservice by not being taught that our careers, because they're just part of us, who we are holistically as humans, like there should be deep work that we do to understand what's going to help us be fulfilled in our careers in different seasons of life. But we've not really been taught that. Again, go back to that linear, conventional, broad sweeping playbook. And so that's what you do in the decision phase, is you do more of that work to recalibrate and figure out where you're going to go next.
Okay, so that's decision, that's stage number 3. So what's stage number 4?
Stage number 4 is action. So just because we make the mental decision doesn't mean we are going to actually take that step. And so action is when you are taking physical steps in the direction of severing your relationship with the job, and you're taking baby steps in the direction of the new dream. Now, what I would say here is that this is the time to be gentle on yourself. So as part of decision, you're mapping out your exit strategy and your game plan. And I always recommend being really thoughtful about timing and how quickly you're going with things, because making a job change is a major life decision. And it is a full upending of your snow globe when you make a job change. The Journal of Applied Psychology found in 2021 that when we switch jobs for over a year, we see our energy decline and we see work-family conflict increase. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't change jobs, right? Like that can still be the right move for us, but we want to go into it with that awareness that can happen. So we want to prepare, go slowly, and take that action in such a way that it allows us to leave gracefully. For example, don't do what I did. Like, I wish I'd never gotten to a breaking point where I just had to quit the next day. That doesn't feel good on our nervous systems. It's very destabilizing. So you map out a way to exit that is graceful. It takes care of you. It covers all your bases, and you're really stable in the other aspects of your life across, finances, health, relationships, even your faith. Like, all of those feel really strong and sturdy, so that when you're making that leap, that cliff that you're leaping from is as stable as it can be.
Okay. So basically taking action. And so what's the 5th stage?
The fifth is after effects. And I think we don't always consider the fact that even if we are making the move to leave from a place of knowing, and we're not just relying on, rationality or logic or just chasing the next big paycheck that's coming your way or a fancy title, we can still end up somewhere that isn't the greatest fit for us. And for me, that was moving from the CMO role down here to Florida. I could tell you that coming down here and taking this job was a terrible idea. But if it hadn't happened, Gull, we would not be sitting here speaking today. we would not. And so as horrible as that was from the standpoint of my mental and emotional health deteriorated really significantly during that time, I wouldn't change it, because we are, to your point of the hero's journey, which I love, like that's what this is kind of based on. It is a bit of a hero's journey at work. We will have challenges along the way, because it is a major life decision, a major life change, as with anything else that's a part of life. And so we have to expect that after effects are good, bad, and ugly. And it can be that we do end up exactly where we wanted. The new job is great. The new business is just flourishing. Or it can be new job is not so great, but I learned something really valuable at the new job that tells me exactly what I don't want, or it makes me face something else that I need to heal or change. Or, it teaches me with what I can do differently in a business niche, for example. But we look and we learn that there are lessons to be gained from these after effects, and we prepare ourselves for that, knowing that it isn't going to be perfect and it can be messy. And then in the final stage, that's an assimilation, where we really look out and up from that rubble and we see that we've grown stronger, we're more resilient, we're more adaptable, we can flex that risk-taking muscle more in the future. And we are definitely moving in the direction, because we're architecting our careers in alignment with our personal truth and what's right for us. And so even if in the after effects we get hit with something really surprising, we can rest assured that we are at least moving in the right direction toward a career of greater fulfillment, because it's a career-long odyssey.
Wow. Okay. And that makes sense to me, because if you make a massive decision, there are going to be some after effects. I mean, after every major earthquake, there's the after effects. It's normal. The aftershocks.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's just how nature is. We understand that point.
Yes.
But if you're mentally prepared for it, I think it makes it a lot easier. So what's the sixth stage then?
Yes, that was assimilation. I'm sorry about that. It's after effects and assimilation. So that's where we see the fallout. The fallout comes with the after effects, and it's good, bad, ugly, all of it in between. And then in assimilation, that's where we really do that retrospective and we gather the lessons from it, and we determine how, moving forward, what we will want to do differently, so that we are continuing to architect our careers in an intentional way moving forward.
Wonderful. Okay. So can you give us a quick summary of the 6 stages again, once again?
Yes. It's rumbling, knowing, decision, action, after effects, and assimilation. And the thing about this that has been really powerful, Gull, is that obviously I base this off of conversations with women, interviews with women. But as soon as we started sharing this out, had men reach out too, to be like, this is absolutely this is a universal process, because it is very, very much akin to like a hero's journey or a cycle that we would go through in making any sort of big life decision. And so I just love that I never expected this to be the outcome. This is not what I went into the project to find, which is very different from corporate Sara, who would have gone in exactly knowing what she was going to get out of it, but let it really emerge. And it's been so beautiful to find this universality in it, because when we know that making a job change is such a scary process, and we can be held back by so many things, fear, our own cognitive limitations, conditioning, all of these things can hold us back. So if we know what we're going to face along the way, and we better prepare for it, we'll be able to ride the peaks and valleys of the journey so much better. So it's really, really proud that this is what's coming to bear, because I think it can be so helpful to so many people, women and men.
Agreed. I mean, when I was listening through it, and that's why I was a bit more quiet, because as I was listening to this, I was actually going through my own decision of leaving my second husband. So the
Oh,
process I
wow.
went
Yes,
through, that's
that
exactly the
too.
process that I went through, because I went through years of abuse. I mean, now
Oh,
looking back in
wow.
hindsight, I didn't know the severity of the abuse until I left it, until I left the marriage, and it was and there's parts of me that are still healing from that relationship,
yes,
and that's what occurred to me just now, that even now, because I only became fully aware of how severe that whole situation was, because when you're in that situation, you only see a small part, you don't see the bigger picture. And now
completely.
when I look back and I realize I'm still healing from some aspects from it. This was 6 years ago. And so this framework that you've laid out doesn't necessarily mean just for, I mean, it works brilliantly in work environment, but the same thing, the same principles can
Completely.
apply to any area of your life, especially in a toxic relationship. And you're talking about toxic relationship in a work environment. I went through in my mind toxic relationship in a personal space, but they're both equally difficult to get out of. This is my second marriage. In my culture, one divorce is bad. And I was going for the second divorce, and I would be instigating the second one as well. And I had a child from the first marriage, a child from the second marriage, the stigma attached, the shame attached. There were so many other factors involved. Yet I finally, I remember it took me such a long time. And even in the end, I had a major event. You had a breakdown. I had to see him literally in bed with another woman before I walked out the door. I had to see that the universe put me in that situation, because I wasn't listening to my intuition beforehand. And so you had the breakdown. I had similar scenarios, but for different situations, the universe gives you whatever you need to make that final step.
Sometimes it's a kick, right? Like sometimes it is a real kick.
And it's necessary. I know for a fact,
exactly.
if I didn't see that scene, I would justify it somehow or the other and not walk out the marriage, because I was going to bend everything and do everything possible to make my second marriage work. It wasn't going to work, and the universe showed me why. But I only understood the full-blown situation when I walked away, because when you walk away from a situation, you get the bird's eye view and you can see what was going on. Then you realize why the universe was trying to push you in a particular direction. And that explains why it took you so long and what happened as well. But anyway, I thought that was brilliant. I absolutely loved listening to those 6 stages. And I was really absorbing and seeing it from a different perspective. But it really makes sense, because these are the exact steps that I went through when I was going through, my life-changing decision. But on that note, we're going to wrap up. Sara, thank you so much for being such an amazing guest. Tell Sara, where can we connect with you? How can you find you on the internet?
Yes, you can find me at raisetorise.com. That's where the journalism project is with women's stories. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as Sara J McElroy.
Thank you. And if you're listening to us on podcast, then the links that I just mentioned will be in the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, down below in the description section, you will find all the links she just mentioned. Do check her out. She's absolutely fabulous. And go and see if she can help you and support you in your decision-making process as well. Well, thank you so much for being such an amazing guest, Sara. It's been a fabulous conversation with you.
Thank you, Gull. It's been amazing.
Thank you for listening to me and Sara today. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.